Hey, Mike.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm good.
Here we are back at the table. This long 6 foot, I think this is actually 8 feet of social distancing. This table, talking about as normal as weird can be. And today I want to talk about rhythms and habits. And, well, first off, let me ask you a question, because this is true of me. Do you find yourself developing some unhealthy habits? Like, let me tell you a story. Rosanna, because we're trying to keep the kids busy, has been baking more, and the kids love it. They get to cook. So there's more treats, chocolate. So I have tripled the dessert intake. So last night there was some chocolate, there was some cookies. So this is a season where it's like all rules go out the window, and you start accumulating these new habits where maybe for a week or two, but if you keep going down that path, it's not good.
Well, here's the thing that I so relate to this, by the way. I don't actually think of my bad habits as habits. I always call them one-time events.
One-time events.
You know, so like
this will never happen again.
This will never happen. I'll just do it just tonight. It will not happen tomorrow night. My big thing is we had these Hershey chocolates, a big bag of them.
Yeah.
That I think we were supposed to use for some event or something. So it's like a really big bag, no event happening. So I'm like, well, just taking a few every night. And I tell myself, this is the last night I'm doing this. I cannot be eating 5-6 pieces of chocolate like this. You know, the wrapper sitting on my stomach. It's not a good look. And this is the last night this is gonna happen.
Yeah.
And then the next night.
Yeah. It's a one-time event again.
Yeah, one time and I think that's what we gotta be really aware of in this season right now is our habits and what are we repeating? What do we want to repeat? What do we not want to repeat?
Well, here's the reality. To get through our life in the previous pandemic world, we had habits and systems in place in terms of what time we woke up, what time we read the scriptures or prayed, what time we did anything, went to work, sat at our office, went to lunch, and now the snow globe has been, and all the fog is there, and we don't have normal. And so what we have is stress, ambient stress, real stress, and we're trying to survive. And it's very easy for there to be unhealthy habits to creep in, whether it's pile driving a pound of chocolate. I think we mentioned this a few weeks ago. Alcohol sales are up. Yeah, a lot of very destructive coping mechanisms begin to come back into place that previously people were able to keep at bay because they were busy. Now the proximity of home, we're like the pantry's right there all day long. So it's all of that factors in. And now that we're 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6, and who knows how long, this is we got to tackle how habits.
Got to have a plan.
Yeah, you gotta have a plan.
And if you don't have a plan, you're going to be eating a lot of chocolate, and you're going to come out on the other side of this, and you really are going to have new habits, but they're habits that you don't want.
Yeah.
Versus habits that you do.
Yeah.
And you know, the other thing is like the idea of routine. We're so all that programming is subconscious. Like we don't have to think about our habits, but now we actually do because you know, driving in the car, getting how you did your morning before COVID. It's like you didn't have to think about it. There was no mental energy spent on that.
Yeah.
But now, because everything's been reset, there's a whole new normal. We actually have to spend mental energy creating new habits.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot.
Well, it takes 21 days to start the habit, 90, I think, for it to become part of your life.
Yep.
We're not 90 days in to this. So we're still in the habit formation process, which is good because we can stop things and we can recreate things, but we need to have some awareness. I think it starts with the basics. Everybody's working from home. So you've had some experience in the working from home game for a while. How do you set yourself up to win in a completely new office space environment they say like, oh, keep everything the same. Well, am I supposed to go sit in my car for 45
Right.
minutes in the driveway?
Right. Or like my office is now the homeschooling room for the
Yeah,
kids, or
yeah.
like this. There's not even some. I was talking with a guy on a Zoom call, and he was in the garage, and he had set up a table, a little pop-up table, and he's got his desktop computer on that. And this was his new office because the rest of his normal office was now being used for the kids and other things, and he needed quiet for work. And so all this disruption in terms of how we work at home. Hey, I got a call. I need it quiet here. I can't have, screaming in the background. Or, my wife. I've been banished up to our guest room for my work. Like that's where I'm doing my work. I do a lot of Zoom calls and a lot of meetings online and counseling online. And so she doesn't want to have the whole down. I kind of have an open area. She doesn't want the whole downstairs taken up with me doing meetings where she has to be quiet, right? Yeah. And honestly, from confidentiality,
very personal counseling.
It's like she doesn't need to be part of this at all. And so it's just complicated. Again, like the basic things of how we work, how we communicate, where we set up. Like we have to rethink all of it, but it has to be looked at, and we have to establish the rhythms because I think God created us to be rhythm people.
Yeah.
Like the practices and the being able to expect things in our day and just kind of have a flow. It's really important.
Well, one of the questions, I think a lot of people wonder, but I get a lot is, why do we have to go to church? Like why, my kids ask that, why do we go to church? And for me, the rhythm of church makes faith real.
Yeah.
It's just not beliefs and things that we read and we say we do, but when we actually go to the building, that rhythm of church is making faith real. It makes moments real. And obviously right now, when it comes to church faith, it used to be for families, they got in the car, they went, and that was a habit, that was a spiritual practice. But now, which is super awkward because Ro and I are watching my sermon, and like the dog sleeping in the corner. There's no sense of what it is when we're in this room and there's people and there's sort of that celebratory, we're singing and declaring things.
Yep.
So all those old habits are gone, but we need to have spiritual habits, whether it's Sunday church. We've been telling church at RB, watch at your normal time.
Yeah,
the location has changed, but the rhythm doesn't need to. And obviously you can watch it anytime you want, but 9:30 or 8:30, I forget when we did, 8:30, 10, 11:30, whichever was the rhythm for you. And
keep it.
Yeah, keep it. Ro and I are settling into kind of our rhythm. We were doing 10 o'clock, now we're doing 8:30. Works better with when the kids are, But those rhythms are just, you've got to have.
So do you have a new one that you're doing right now, like that's been helpful? Like
a new spiritual rhythm?
New spiritual rhythm, a new habit, something that's really working for you right now?
Yeah, I would say the most helpful rhythm that I have put in place is, so I was getting up, and this was my rhythm. I would binge the news for an hour in the morning.
Yep.
And
Guilty.
I was so sad. I was so sad.
Yeah.
Because there's no story out there that's like, oh, this is positive. So the rhythm that I have right now that's been incredibly helpful is I wake up, I pray, I read the scriptures, and then I listen to a podcast.
That's good.
So,
there's been a lot of research around how you prime your mornings will set the course for the rest of the day. And starting with negative news or even email for that matter, like having a lot of email come in. I love that I'm going to start my day in prayer. Like I'm going to go to God in this moment. What a great way to prime the rest of your day and really the rest of your habits that you're going to do and rhythms of the day.
Yeah, and that's one that was always there, or for the most part, I've been waking up and praying before I dive into the day. But adding that layer of the podcast and adding that layer of putting things in to kind of set my mind on things that are are really positive. I was trying to read, but reading sometimes is like a productivity.
Yeah, becomes
feel like
work.
It becomes work,
Yeah.
and podcasts are pretty passive, so I can listen as I'm sitting and drinking coffee, and I can take notes as I want. So that's been helpful for me. I've just binged through podcasts because that sets my mind on things I need to. So that's been incredibly helpful. But that's new. I've never really been a podcast guy. I've never really done that, but it's been very, very helpful.
It's interesting to me, like basically what you're saying and what I'm noticing here is like there's different categories of rhythms and there's different categories of habits.
Yeah.
It's like there could be a morning rhythm, there could be a spiritual rhythm, there could be a self-care rhythm, there could be a family rhythm, there's a work rhythm. And honestly, I think if we have to look at every one of those categories and say, okay, what are we going to do in each of those categories to establish some normalcy and something that we can repeat pretty much every day? Because if it's just kind of all over the place, or we're spitballing it, or a little bit of this, a little bit of that, number one, we do ourselves a disservice in terms of, like, again, God created us for rhythms. We need to have some patterns that we can repeat, so we're not always kind of in chaos, and especially times of extra stress, crisis. Rhythms actually help anchor us back into health and stability. But looking at kind of the different categories and say, okay, what, maybe, if you're listening right now or watching, the idea of, okay, what category do I need to build a new habit or rhythm in this week? What area has been neglected? Mm-hmm. What's kind of been willy-nilly right now in my life? I'm just kind of forgetting about it, or just, for me, like, evening routine would be one for me, because here I am eating a bunch of chocolates, just kind of zoning out on Netflix. And I don't, for me, like, you ran a good habit when you're feeling more alive and more awake and more free, and you're trending towards the things of God.
Yeah, I'm not having a carbohydrate headache.
Yeah, I'm not having I'm not feeling guilt and shame about all this chocolate, right? Yeah. And so, maybe we go, okay, what areas have been neglected in terms of habits? And then going, okay, is it the habits that I am doing, are they producing the results that I want, or are they creating, more shame or excuses? Or, hey, if I fast forward this 60 days from now, am I going to be in the place that I want to be?
Where am I going to be at? Yeah.
Where am I going to be?
One of the things that somewhere along the way I heard this, and it's so true. We always say practice makes perfect. Not really. Practice makes permanent.
Yes.
Like, whatever you're doing, anything in your life, you're like, why did I do that? It's like, well, because you did it yesterday.
Yeah.
It's like that is how human nature works. We get in grooves and we just go. And having some conscious awareness of the grooves we are establishing from when we wake up, what we do when we wake up, our workflow, how we Zoom calls, all the things that we were doing previously in an office setting, now trying to have habits around when, because you may have always had your lead meeting or lead team meeting or whatever at 2:00 on Thursday. Well, now that's homeschool time, and that's when the kids, so you can't just punt on that. You need to have another, I can't do it then, but I can do it in this time slot, reformatting your life for permanence, this new sort of permanent thing that we're in.
That's so good. I think, the reality is, I think too, with the habits, we don't need a lot of habits in each category, but to find one additional thing that we can get into the practice. Because obviously, if you introduce a bunch of new habits, you're probably going to fail at all of them.
Yeah.
But finding the 1, 2, maybe 3 things that you want to get in the groove. I love that word, like get in the groove, so you stop kind of thinking about it, it gets to be a flow. And then figuring out, like, okay, what are the things I need to put around me to make sure this habit happens? I actually talked about this at CRB, I guess last month, about how to create new behaviors, right? And to create a new behavior, you need motivation, you need the ability to do it, and then you need a prompt. And those three things need to converge together to create a new behavior. And the thing that we always think it's about motivation. I have to have the motivation to, do a self-care practice, or I have to have the motivation to work out and, do exercise. We focus too much on motivation. We really need to be focusing on the prompt. And
good.
so thinking about how you can design your life or your day to help remind you about the new habit that you're going to do. So like maybe when you're waking up, your normal habit would be to reach for your cell phone and start consuming news. Maybe there's a little sticky note that you put on top of your phone that says, pray.
Those small little tweaks. James Clear in Atomic Habits talks about cue, craving, response, reward.
Great book.
As the flow and the channel of every behavior that we have in our life. And so when it comes to the chocolate, it's like cue. It might be 8 o'clock at night or
a little craving.
Or
something sweet.
So now you've got the craving. So you respond, you get up and you go get the chocolate. And then you have the reward, like, oh, I ate the chocolate. But it's starting with the cue. I got to change that cue. And right now, I think why this is so hard is because all the cues are different. Everything that we've oriented our lives around. So like for you, going to the gym, you can't put the shoes next to the door to send you that cue. So you have to change the cue so you can get the same responses in life that are beneficial and healthy. And
I did with the gym now. Like I had to change the cue. So I printed out the month, like a calendar on a piece of paper. And I'm now just checking boxes of when I work out and how many calories I burn, watching the and by the way, we have to put this out here, like I'm still pretty lame in my little home gym, and I was like, I need better results for the amount of work I put in. But the cue now has moved from tennis shoes and shorts to the calendar sitting on my desk, and I'm crossing off. I'm just making that the new habit to cue or to prompt me to go into my little cruddy home gym that I got going to do a little workout.
Oh, totally. I used to be really good at reading the Bible on an iPad. I don't know why, but right now, if I pick up the iPad, I am going straight to USA Today, and I'm reading. So I'm having to change. So I bought this like old school thick, study Bible. And that's the thing that I've been, and when I see it, it's a cue. Oh, I'm going to actually open up, and I can't close this Bible app and open up the browser to find the news. So that for me has been a huge shift.
It's a big, honestly, like if that's the one thing that people take away from this conversation is start getting creative about the cues, get creative about the prompts. If you truly want to create a new habit and a healthy habit, you got to surround it with those cues and prompts. Otherwise, it's not going to happen because there's too much else going on. There's too much disruption and too many other things pulling your energy and pulling your attention that you're going to miss the thing that you're actually trying to accomplish in the day.
I think there's a lot of people beating themselves up over responses. Like, I don't like my responses to life right now. I don't like that I go for the chocolate. I don't like that I go for the, it used to be the glass of wine. Now it's the 5 glasses of, it's now this new thing that's so destructive. Then stepping back to the cue, what is that at a time that you're doing that? Is that, what are the factors around it? And changing those factors around, whatever that is going to be the only way that you change the response and starting to put some new systems in place.
Because a lot of us will go, well, it's willpower. I just need to gut this out.
Yeah.
Bad strategy. Bad strategy.
You're gonna be going back for the chocolate with willpower.
Anything you're resisting is gonna most likely win. Versus creating new, removing cues, removing prompt.
Set yourself up for
the chocolate bag. The bag of chocolates right in front of me when I open the cupboards is. I probably need to work on that cue.
maybe some of that's like the old Easter candy, I don't know, but or old Halloween candy, just finish out the bag and then give yourself some grace.
Well,
but I love
to your point, like lots of grace for this because
I was going to say, I think that's the key.
It's hard.
This is the new reality of where we are, and this is all new. People have never tried to create healthy rhythms and do this in an environment where all of life has changed and shifted. To get through this, when history speaks about pandemics, people look back on and they ask the question, who survived the pandemic? They don't look back and go, who changed who was the most productive in the pandemic?
Right.
Who created the most innovative thing in the pandemic? I think there is some part of this where you give yourself grace and say, well, we were surviving and getting through, but we don't want to regress and have really destructive patterns that we put in place that post-pandemic we're still carrying, because once those grooves are there, it's really hard.
Well, it goes to that whole idea of, one of the things that the book Atomic Habits talks about is start tiny and small and few. And if you have some big aggressive habit, I've heard a lot of people like they want to write their book. I'm gonna start write my book in the morning, and that feels like a really big, lofty new habit or behavior to add to your life. It's like if you do a few things well during this season, you'll come out a winner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And probably remove the cues that are going to take you down a road that's going to create a lot of chaos or dysfunction. Like remove those cues. But if you just do a few habits and rhythms really well each day, you'll come out on the other side and you go like, wow, I'm all that in a bag of chips. Look at me.
Yeah. He talks about that idea of habit stacking.
Yes.
And right now, I think you can begin to explain habit stacking. I know you've.
Yeah, well, it's just, it's the whole idea of you have a small habit. And so let's say exercise, for example. You could just get a small habit of, say, I'm going to do 10 push-ups a day, or I'm going to do 10 minutes of some aerobic activity. And you get that habit, that small, tiny habit of 10 minutes or 10 push-ups, you get that in place first, okay? And you get some grooves going with that. And then you can add on top of that another exercise. You go from push-ups and now I'm doing jumping jacks. Or I was at 10 minutes and that's been my normal, now I'm gonna go to 20 minutes. The idea of stacking versus typically the way we approach it is, I'm gonna get so jacked right now, and I'm gonna dive, I'm gonna do an hour workout and bench press this and military lift that.
My shoulder hurts after one.
Exactly. And then, 2 days later, you're sore and it's not feeling good, and you've done yourself a real disservice.
Yeah.
And so the brilliance of this, and I think it's so biblical too, like the power and potency of small things then added on top of small things, like to me that seems like a kind of a kingdom principle. But it works.
Yeah. It's that daily thing of returning to the same healthy patterns over and over again. Yeah, the people of God, structure is critical. There's a reason why in the Old Testament there's a temple. There's a reason why you see Jesus going to pray in the temple.
The Sabbath, right?
Yeah, weekly, but there's the daily. They're going in, the disciples, it says, at the hour of prayer, they're going in to pray. Yeah. This is a couple of times a day, they're headed there to pray. These kinds of rhythms are in place. Now in the Old Testament, it's all law. In the New Testament, there's a completely new paradigm. But structure, the idea of structure in the Old Testament has to be overlaid to this new reality of the kingdom of Jesus and Easter, how we think about our relationship with God now. We can't punt on structure, even though we're not under the law. We have to have, it's not legalistic to say, I've got to get up and have, 4 quiet times a week, or try to aim for something. One of the things, and this has actually been a helpful rhythm for me, is I'm doing this 40-day devotion through the Psalms with our church. And so every day I sit down, get in the Psalms, write a devotion around it. But a couple days ago, I shared about a new rhythm for our family. And it's every night, sometimes twice on the weekends, it's twice a day. We go on these walks. and my kids hate it, by the way, or they did. They're starting to get more acclimated to it, but we let them take their bikes now. That's helped a lot. But they a couple of days ago, we were on one of our nightly walks, and because of all this rain, that we've had over the last few weeks, there's a ton of snails everywhere.
Oh, interesting.
And so our kids wanted to take some of these snails home, and we're in the middle of a quarantine. I'm trying to be a little less, rule oriented.
Less rigid,
take all the snails. So I let them take a snail home, and they named the snail Tilly, and kept him in the back. I don't know what happened to him. Eventually, he was gone. They didn't kill him, but I think he escaped very slowly. Bottom line, here's what I realized. One of the things that's been an ache for me is our kids cannot go to church and worship and sing. For our church right now, there's a huge ache where we do not gather and sing. And part of the power of singing worship songs is not just that you do it in your car, but you hear other people sing. Sometimes I go to church and I don't sing, but I need the collective experience of hearing everybody else sing around me, because people declaring how great is our God is lifting me up and reminding me of that truth. And so that's been a powerful rhythm of my faith for a long time, of 20 or so years of following Christ, that you gather weekly, you worship, and you have that worship habit, that worship rhythm. What I realized in that moment with my kids and Tilly, this was worship. Noticing the intricacies of God's design and creation, from the large things that you see in sunsets to the smallest things that you see in a snail. And that weekly or that daily rhythm of the walk has been, it's kind of like been a new rhythm of worship, honestly.
Yeah, fascinating. I love that.
But I think we can get creative right now.
Yeah.
And I used to go to church and worship in the building and singing, and there's still a place for that, and we still worship, online. But now I have this opportunity to be in creation more on these walks with my kids, and that's a habit of worship. It's really become a powerful habit of worship.
And what I love about that is there'll probably be, when we get back to normal, when we get back to kind of the regular weekly gatherings, that might just be an additional, you talk about habit stacking, like now you just have a new practice of these walks with your family, looking for snails, or just being like that. You've just leveled up in your worship.
Yeah, it's given me another facet.
Yes.
Because it's an act of worship to come into a building and sing songs about who God is and declare that, and that's powerful, and we do that, and we need to do that. But it's also very powerful and very biblical. If God made everything, we're not pantheists that we believe, God is everything. He's not, can't say, well, this is God. But God is in everything. It's His creation, His design. You can see His wisdom everywhere. And I can look at a snail.
So cool.
And say, yes, God's alive and active. And I mean, the Psalms declare this, like the rocks will cry out. I mean, so we can see creation now, and we can have new rhythms of worship. So
I love it.
Well, Mike, good to be with you. I want to remind everybody who's watching this, by the way, if this is helpful to you, if this is something that you want to share with your friends, as normal as we can be, then we invite you to do that. We'll see you next time.